Welcome to Midlife Unraveled, the podcast that takes you on a journey through the twists and turns of midlife. I'm your host, Anita Gilbert, and I've transitioned from the corporate world of investment banking to become the proud owner of a yoga and Pilates studio. Together, we're going to navigate the exhilarating roller coaster that is midlife. Each episode, we dive deep with a seasoned expert to rediscover and redefine how to live our best during this life-changing period. Join us every Tuesday for new episodes, brimming with wisdom, insights, inspiration, and a laugh along the way. So strap in, because Midlife Unraveled is about to redefine the way you embrace midlife. Subscribe today and take this journey with us. Welcome to Midlife Unraveled. I'm your host, Anita Gilbert, and today we're exploring midlife career changes, or as I like to call it, the next chapter. Whether this is a whole new career or a pivot from your current role, we're seeing more and more women at this age exploring new possibilities in midlife. There was only one person to talk to on this subject, and I am delighted to welcome Angela Raspass.
Hey there.
Angela, as a self-leadership coach and mentor, you've supported hundreds of women through their next chapter. You have a huge amount of experience in this area, so we're keen to delve a little deeper. So what do you think, where do you think this comes from, this need to sort of look at our lives and consider what's around us?
It's a big question, but I think there is a quote I remember hearing quite a while ago that talks about the unexamined life is a life not worth having. It's by someone famous, so I'm probably getting the paraphrasing wrong, but what I think is happening to us, or I can speak for myself and obviously the clients that I've supported as well, is that we hit this point in life, and it's a slightly different point for everybody, but it tends to, the voice in the back of your head tends to increase in volume in like your early to mid 40s. And if we don't respond to it, it just keeps getting louder and louder and louder for a lot of us. So it's
I heard that voice.
You know that voice? Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's
voice.
Where opportunity and desire are intersecting. Okay. So what do I mean by that? Well, I'm 54. So my sort of midlife, unraveling, is that what you called it? Midlife unraveled? Started probably, mid to late 40s, which I now understand was perimenopausal. I didn't know there was a thing called perimenopause. I thought it was just menopause, but there you go. And the voice started asking, are you doing what you're here to do? And I had to sort of ignore the voice for a while because I still had kids at home. And even though they were in their mid-teens, they had certain needs, etc., etc. I was tied up in my husband's business. I was running my business, and I didn't have the space to consider, to reflect and consider. But a little while after that, space started opening up more. My kids were getting older, one left home, went down to interstate, etc., etc. And as that space opened up and the responsibilities that I'd had for a long time, having 2 kids and 2 bonus kids as well, they started to recede. And in that space that opens up, we find ourselves questioning what I was mentioning before. What am I doing now? Am I on track? Where did I want to be? Who did I think I was going to be? What did I think I was going to do? Am I ticking those boxes? Am I like way off course? So I just think it's a natural part of life that we get to, that when that space opens, it gives us the opportunity for consideration. So that's the first point.
Yeah, I feel that can happen quite quickly as well. I feel like when the kids are in their teens, like obviously they're children, they're very, all your time and energy is devoted. They hit their teens, it's still a lot of emotional time and energy. And then suddenly they've like done HSC and they're maybe going away to university, or they're just suddenly independent. And I feel like suddenly we sort of pop our heads up and look around and suddenly think, well, what's going on?
Exactly.
I've got this time, that space. And I feel that there's that level of maturity as well to be able to look back at what I've achieved and what I've done, and am I happy with that? And then looking forward and realizing there's a whole lot of life left, and how am I going to use that, and what difference am I going to make to my life
Exactly.
when the focus is maybe not so strongly on everybody around you.
Exactly. And that's the whole thing. It's the shift. And there is an identity shift that is available for us here. It's like I'm not that person any longer. I'm still that person, but those parts of me, those aspects of me that made me sit in this particular mold have now been like sloughed away. So who's emerging? It's this beautiful opportunity for recalibration. And it's interesting, that concept of the maturity to actually look a little deeper. Sometimes you have to approach that with caution, because if we have this feeling of missed opportunities, it can actually be quite a sad time. It can be, we can look back and go, oh, if only I'd zigged when I zagged, or zagged when I'd zigged. If I could have done that thing, or if I could have done that thing, things might look very different. And so we have to navigate this area with caution as well. Hopefully in good company, in terms of, girlfriends who are also at this stage of life. The exchange of stories and perspectives and experiences, if we can share openly without judgment and without being judged, we can learn a lot from other women's experiences as well, which is why I love the idea that you have for this show. Because that inspiration that we can find from another person can open a door for us. So I also think that, psychologically, there is different things going on here as well. And sometimes, we recognize that there is a need possibly for some therapy to help us, deal with some of those concerns of the past. It's not always true, but that can certainly happen. Sometimes there's an unexpected diagnosis that gets thrown into the mix. For me, it was being diagnosed with ADHD after my daughter was, and going, oh my God, that contextualizes so many things that I had in my life. And actually, I think the experience of that can almost be similar to the experience of hitting midlife overall. It's like, first of all, there's like, wow, how did I get here? There's freedom. That was the, wow, seriously, I've got ADHD. And then there's the, whoa, let me find out all about this. Okay. And for midlife, what are all the things that I might be able to do? And then there is the, oh, geez, I've made mistakes along the way. Oh, I've missed out on this and that. That's what happened with me with that diagnosis. And a midlife woman can feel the same way, like when I was talking about the zigging and the zagging. And then you can get a bit angry. Well, all these opportunities that I couldn't have, and now it's too late. So, and then you move into acceptance. Well, I'm here now. And then you move into action. Okay, so what am I going to do with it? So I think there's a whole cycle that you can go through when you hit here. And as I said, it's an identity shift. And that can go either way, depending on the company you keep. So we can be triggered up, or we can be triggered down.
I think you're right. It can really be a time of almost sort of sadness. And I feel like if you're not supported, bittersweet, because you sort of look back on times, think, well, maybe, if I hadn't have taken that career turn, or taken that role, or, whatever it happens to be, that can actually have a big influence on how we view it. But it is having those support structures in place to give you that time to reflect and time to do that, but in a positive space, like you said, with friends around you, with support from partners. It's really important to have that support, because I feel like it can be quite a vulnerable time as well.
I think vulnerable is a good word. And walking hand in hand with that is the need for self-compassion.
Yeah.
Okay? There is one of the quotes in life which has really always helped me in terms of growth, was by Maya Angelou, who said, we do the best we can until we know better, then we do better.
That's so true.
And it's just a gorgeous quote. And so that's where the self-compassion is important. Now, I mentioned that, perhaps some therapy is needed sometimes. I certainly had some with the most fantastic narrative therapists who helped me look back and make sense of the past, and helped me realize that the choices that I'd made were the best I could make at the time. The knowledge and who I am today was not that person who made choices 10, 15, even 5 years ago. And that's where the self-compassion needs to kick in. Yeah. Because if we build this foundation, a springboard into our next chapter, then that's a brilliant thing. We don't want to use it as it's getting late and I made mistakes and yada, 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 which can help us go down. Yeah. So the focus at this point, I really think, is to create that springboard. And there's many ways of doing that.
Also, mentoring I think is a great option for a lot of people, for somebody to sort of look objectively at, hey, these are the strengths that you do have. and this is what you could possibly do. Like, I feel like there's probably a lot of women out there who are really not sure what to do, that feel that they have an opportunity to do more with their lives, but not really sure where to turn. So that can also be a nice option. I feel support. And then also, I suppose menopause throws a huge curveball into the whole scheme of things as well. So, not only are you sort of coping with these midlife feelings and views on the past and the future, but you're also physically often going through quite a big change and quite a lot of, suffering with symptoms, confusion about what's going on. And so that sort of throws a huge bomb into the works as well. So I feel like for a lot of women, it's such a confusing time, and it can be a time of great growth, but it can also be a time of reflection and not necessarily happy reflection. So it can be, it can be such a springboard, as you said. And I feel like we like to always focus on the positive. And, what are women in midlife looking like, in your experience, women who come to see you, what sort of things are they looking to do? Is it a complete change? Is it a small pivot mostly, or what sort of things are you seeing?
Well, it's really individual. Okay, so there is no one size fits all. We may all go through the same experience, as in, if you're female, you're going to have menopause. This is going to happen. And so that, just a little asterisk there, something I read which really made me go, that explains it. There was this idea that the estrogen, which is wearing off, obviously, and so our hormone levels are changing in many ways. And when the estrogen drains away, there's more testosterone in our systems and we take less shit. So we can tend to get more decisive. Yeah, it definitely does. And we can find ourselves becoming more decisive, which I think is a great thing. So in terms of, okay, what am I seeing? Whether it's a pivot or whether it's a leap, again, individual. But underpinning those is people wanting to step more into, I know it's an overused word, but I'm going to use it anyway, authenticity. I don't want to be someone that I'm not any longer. I'm no longer willing to turn up at that workplace and sort of like twist myself into that shape. Or I'm no longer willing to, if I've got a business, to just stay in the safety zone. Like I want to make a difference. So there is a real pull towards meaningful work, feeling as though, what you are doing is having some type of impact. It's about, I use the expression GOSCOP, which is get off self, get on purpose. Mm-hmm. That's an acronym for how a lot of women are feeling. It's like, I don't want to play around in the shallows any longer. Yeah. Now, I'm talking very much here in terms of career and business. I'm not asserting that everybody has to have a big career or a big purpose when it comes to business, because it's a choice. Exactly. So this stage is about exercising choice. So it's about ascertaining, who am I now? And what makes me tick? You said before, you were making a reference to what I call self-knowledge. So in the self-leadership framework, which I work on with a lot of women, the first stage is self-knowledge. And this is about getting under the surface, because that identity shift that's happening, I may keep parts of myself, but others may be pushed to one side. I may have still the same values, but they're different in precedence now. Like my family value, maybe that steps a little to the side. Yeah. And my adventure or courage values, come up further. So self-knowledge, where you understand what your strengths are, what your values are, what your personal vision is, where your tender spots are, where have you skinned your knees, that you may be able to use that experience to help others. So there's this real focus on contribution and meaning. That's a big part.
Yeah. I also feel like we play a lot of roles. So you play the role of mother when your kids are very young, and you don't stop being a mother or a wife or a lawyer or whatever roles that you happen to have in life. But I feel like they come in and out of strength in your life. So you may play, one role may take up a lot more of your time. So if it's parenting, being a parent is going to take up a lot more of your time when your kids are younger. Exactly. And suddenly, while you don't stop being in that role is not as important in terms of time and energy from you. So that leaves space for other things.
Exactly. And so, what can arise in there is this feeling of unfulfilled potential, or you may have had goals that are on the shelf, and now you pull them down off the shelf and have a look at them again. and go, does this now fit? I always wanted to, hang glide. Do I still want to do that? Or I've always wanted to backpack around Asia. Do I still want to do that? So it's about dusting them off and having a good look at them in the context of who you've become. And that requires honesty. And when it comes to what am I going to do in terms of the business or the career, it's what's important to me now. So the key thing that you have here beyond the self-knowledge is curiosity.
Yeah.
Curiosity is absolutely paramount, so that you can start noticing, what am I pulled towards? What am I like stepping definitely back from? There's some other pieces here I like to think of. Okay, we've talked about what are your values, what are your strengths?
Yeah.
Okay, and one of the things that I do in my business is that I do strengths profiling to help people really understand what are their realized strengths, what are the unrealized strengths that have been on the shelf that we could bring into the limelight now.
That's really fascinating.
Yeah, it's a biggie.
Yeah.
But there's also the soapbox moments. Like, what is it that really irks you or inspires you? If I gave you a soapbox to stand on, what's the thing that you would want to tell the world about? That's another sign to get curious about. There's also the way showers. So if you think about who is it out there in the world whose work inspires you, because that's another clue. So we're getting curious about the clues. And the other one's the pits. What pits have you fallen into? Which I was mentioning before, and you've skinned your knees. And so now you could use that experience and insight to help shorten and sweeten the journey for another person. So there's lots of pieces. Got to look at your skills, got to look at what role will this business or career play in your life now? Because some people, some people who have a partner and they have a shared revenue generation, they don't need possibly to generate so much income from their business, and they can allow themselves to relax a little and explore. Others are single mums, and so this business or career is vital. So there are so many pieces that go into the recipe overall, but the reflection piece and the self-knowledge piece is the starting point for sure.
Yeah, the questioning. I feel like we get to that point, we start questioning our lives, our future, questioning the past. And really looking at what's going on ahead. And it may not necessarily be career. I mean, the amount of women I know who have taken off around the world doing that Camino trail that they've always wanted to do. And it could be a travel hat. It could be that, that's the hat that, the role of traveler that's been sort of subdued in the past, it comes now back into the fore. But it is a matter of finding, how do women find what they want to do? If, you've been in a role, you've been in a job for the last 25 years and all that kind of industry, and suddenly I want to break free. I want to get away. Is strengths the first place to start?
Well, those pieces that I was touching on before, the soapbox and the way showers and the strengths and the values and the pits and the people that are around you, the things you're using, the curiosity to notice what is it that's drawing you in. That's where you start. It's rare that someone comes to me and goes, I have absolutely no idea. Though there has actually been one client in the last couple of months, I have no idea. In which case we have to turn into detectives and to start, looking at these things, bringing these pieces together and see if we can assemble a picture. Believe it or not, this particular client has just discovered one of her loves is a wanting to develop is a real interest in surf skiing and wanting to teach other midlife women how to surf ski. I mean, that was like, neither of us expected that when we were first sort of like looking, because of where she is at the moment in terms of the career that she has. But she's allowing herself to explore. She's not like putting the blinkers on. She's actually, I guess I'd think she's got glass blinkers. She can see through them. So she's still on her path, but she can see other possibilities. So it can be as easy as pick up the weekend magazine, see what you're drawn to. Think about, what do I like to watch? If I go into a bookshop, where do I go in the bookshop? Okay, what genres or what areas call me? Like, you'll always find me in personal development and business. Those are the two areas that I'm fascinated by.
That's
so I'm always going to grab those books. So it's individual for each person. Now, obviously, if you suddenly wake up at 54 and decide, look, what I've always wanted to be as a surgeon, it could be a bit trickier. Not impossible, but a bit trickier. But this is looking at your internal landscape. That's what we're looking at. And then coupling that with the opportunities that are out there. I mean, the beauty is these days, we were speaking off camera before, is this a new phenomenon? in terms of hitting this life. I think about my mum, and at 54, she certainly wasn't contemplating, well, I wonder what my next career is going to be.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, that wasn't happening. But we have so many more examples of possibility. So our landscape, our lens has broadened significantly, which I find hugely exciting.
Yeah.
I feel more energized now in my mid-50s than I anticipated. And because I don't have, you know, God bless my kids, but I don't have that same level of anchoring, not being able to move and explore, there's a freedom there, which is very exciting. It's very exciting.
I agree. And I feel like there's also more of an attitude of I can rather than I can't.
There can be.
That there is possibility. And I feel like that testosterone kicks in a little bit too. It's like, well, why can't I do this?
Yeah,
Like, of
exactly.
course I can.
Exactly.
And just seeing that possibility, seeing it as a real possibility, and seeing, and I feel like you said, you can't, by seeing other people doing things, we can say, okay, fine. Well, if they can do it, then I can do it. It is a role model, and I feel like having those positive role models in place is huge.
Yeah.
Especially at this time of life, because if you can look at things and go, well, I missed the boat on that, or shouldn't have done that. But when we are seeing time and time again examples of women who have changed their lives, who have taken that pivot, and they don't necessarily have to have had a huge amount of experience in this new thing, like you said, the surf skiing.
Well, and so one of the things that's really useful here is to take a skills audit.
Yeah.
Okay, I do this with clients all the time. Okay, so strengths are one thing. Strengths are they're measured on the amount of energy that something gives you or takes away from you, how competent you see yourself as it, with it, and how often you use it. That's strengths. But
So
skills
is that more of a
are different.
personality focus?
It's an individual focus, but
Okay.
it's not so much personality. I use a different tool for that.
Yeah.
But so a skills audit of looking at what are all the things that you can do. Like, you know,
Okay.
I'm a good speaker. I can write. You know, I'm pretty techie. I'm like getting down to the granular level, all these skills, and then to look at them and go, okay, which ones are applicable to other industries or other potential business types? Because then you can transfer your skills. So, like, again, if you say, I want to be a surgeon, okay, don't have a lot of skills in that area. You know, what else can I do? I know that's an extreme example, but a skills audit is really useful. And having someone help you do that, because it's very hard to see the spot that you're standing on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that we have to break through is, well, there's actually a few. There's conditioning, and there's comparison, and there's culture, and there's competition. Those sort of like, you know, the four horsemen that can take you off your track. If you compare and despair, like you look at, oh, well, look what they're doing and I should be able to do that. Or conditioning as, well, that's not available for me at my age. Or the culture that says, you know, the insidious messages that we get that when we hit these sort of years, especially moving into your 50s, you're not really relevant any longer. You're a bit invisible.
Yeah.
And I think it's actually a bit of a conspiracy, another C, that just when we hit our highest point of strength and possibility, culture starts to say you're no longer relevant.
Yeah.
Yes, I got that one. So we're all gonna rise up and combat that together.
Exactly.
And the last one's the competition factor, the feeling that, well, there's not enough space for me. And that's absolutely not true. Oh, everyone's already doing that. Well, that's evidence that there's a market there.
Yeah.
You know, there is enough for all of us to be able to step into who we want to become. There absolutely is space.
I feel like also, like you were saying with that skills, it's very hard to recognize your own skills often. And also you may not have had a career. You may have been a stay-at-home mum, but you don't realize the amount of skills that you actually have gained.
Absolutely.
So I feel like to look objectively and not say it has to be a career skill. It has to be very career focused. It's a life skill as well, but that life skill is something that you can utilize. I think, you know, the sense of organization that you need when you're a mother and juggling of priorities is something that you can use in so many different things. So actually giving credit to these things that you've gained and these things that you've done very successfully, whether that's in a career role, whether it's not in a career role, or it's something completely different. But I feel like it's often hard. I feel like maybe that's a chat with a cup of tea around with the girlfriends around. It's like, actually, let's have a look at what are we good at, and to find out how other people around you view you as well. It's a very interesting question, to ask your friends, actually, what do you see when you see me? Like, what do you think I'm good at? And you may find you get very different results from what you see yourself. I think we can be very, very hard on ourselves.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
and to have somebody objectively look at you and go, actually, we know we're friends, but aside from that, I see these are the strengths I see in you. And that can be really fulfilling and really confidence boosting as well for somebody who is looking at taking a midlife change and pivot in
Well,
whatever they're doing.
one of the things that I did in the last few years is I studied positive psychology. So I studied and got a diploma in that. And one of the exercises that we did was exactly that. It was done very specifically. So there's some things that you can do to frame it and brief it when you're sending out the request to your circle of acquaintances and friends to get back that what do you see? And there were questions around, when you have seen me at my best, what was I doing? Okay, and other questions like that really help people, because if people know you, they can tend to just like give you the platitudes. Oh, you're so this and you're so that.
Yeah,
We want to dig a little bit underneath that.
specific examples are good.
Yeah, so you can dig in a little bit more.
Doesn't include dancing on tables at 3 a.m.
Not anymore, hopefully. But see, that positive psychology was a great example of me getting curious, noticing what it was that drew me, and noticing that, and then looking and saying, okay, where's an opportunity here? Okay? And having discussions with other people who actually went, well, you might be interested in this. I saw this course, and off I went.
Yeah.
So, we don't want to do this in isolation. Okay?
Yeah.
We don't want to do this in isolation. But that reflection process with guided journaling. So by guided journaling, I mean, instead of just sitting there and trying to journal, actually journal 2 questions, specific questions. You can Google and you'll find them online. I've got lots of them as well that help you mine yourself for gold, because it's in there. And I think we need to put an asterisk here as well, Anita, that there is no compulsion for this. Like this, you don't have to do this.
Yeah.
You don't have to go, well, my God, the kids are off my hands now. I really should be doing something more.
Oh, yeah, gosh, no, that's the worst. If you're happy to do what you do, you stay.
There is a gap. If there is a gap, if you perceive this gap between this potential gap and this desire, one of the things that I wrote about in my book, which is your next chapter, ditch your doubt, own your worth, and build the business you really want. I went into this, and one of them is what I call the discontent continuum. So with the next chapter, cycle of change, the first step is discontent. So working out what are you not happy about, and is that discontent? I've got it in front of me. It goes from irritable through to desperate in terms of wanting change, and all the steps in between.
But then if you don't hit that first step, so you don't have that sense, you never go down that path, and it's great that you're fulfilled in what you're doing. So it does, I feel like it takes a fork in the road
it could do,
at that point.
Yes, but you can also be unconscious about it. You can paper over it. You may be feeling discontent, but you chop yourself off at the past before you even explore that. Oh, well, I should be grateful. Yeah, I've got a great life. What right do I have to not be happy or whatever? I've seen that happen a lot as well. So we need to dig under our own surfaces, because our emotions, they're how we navigate. They're getting our attention. If we're angry, it's because our body and our experience is trying to tell us something. If we're sad, same thing. If we're curious, same thing. So we've got to tune into the body barometer and take some of our indicators from there, not just always in the head, because it's the thoughts that create the feelings, and there's a loop, a cycle that's happening there. So I think I would find it hard to believe that there is a woman alive who has never felt discontent, whether it be in her job, in her business, in her life, whatever. And so pausing and looking at that, getting curious about it, digging below the surface, not dismissing it. And
listening, you've got to listen to that voice. You've got that voice in your head, and it is getting louder and louder. I think you need to listen to that, and whether that's something that you take action on, or whether it's something that you just listen to, consider, and say, okay, fine. Well, maybe the time isn't right now. Maybe it's something that I'm looking to do in the future, or something that I really have to decide isn't for me, whatever the case. But I feel like if we're getting those little signals, we're getting those niggling kind of feelings and thoughts in our head, it really is time to act.
Yeah,
so
it is.
If somebody is considering a midlife change, in your experience, what do you recommend? What's the next step that they Is it having a look at those strengths and skills surveys, or
Yeah,
what do you
it's all of the
recommend?
things. It's all of the things that we've touched on. The first is giving yourself permission to explore,
Yeah.
the permission to actually respond to your curiosity, to respond to your discontent, to start looking inside. Okay, so doing that self-knowledge piece of who am I?
Yeah.
And what are my strengths? What is, if I could, imagine my life in 5 or 10 years' time, what would it look like?
Yeah.
Getting specific around there. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you go, well, I don't actually know. Well, if you did know,
Yeah.
start with
Pretend to know.
start with the imagining. Start to
Yeah.
imagine how do I want to feel? Start
Yeah.
there, and then start moving back from there.
It's like
Look,
on a
I
Sunday
always,
night, what do you think? What are you looking forward to for doing the next day? You know, what does that Sunday night look for you? Is it dread? Is it looking forward to the week ahead? And what does the week ahead feel like? What does it
and
look like?
there's actually a cool, if you want to do something that's really tangible and quite cool, when we were doing, again, when I was studying the positive psychology, which is not all about happy, happy, joy, joy. It's about helping people thrive. That's what
Okay,
it's about.
I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah, it's not just about
It's walking
ignore all
around
the
with a
bad
smile on your face
feelings.
the whole time.
Yeah, no, because your negative feelings are as relevant and as important as your positive ones are. You can't be happy, happy, joy, joy every day. But what we
That's
do is we
suspicious if
learn
you are, I think.
very. What we learn how to do is not get stuck in those emotions. Because
Yeah.
when we get stuck and we're on this loop, then that can be really detrimental. Okay, really detrimental. Flexible thinking is a self-leadership skill, which is really important to develop. But the little thing that we use, and if you've got, it's on iOS, it's on Apple as well, and I'm pretty sure it's also on Android, is you look for the mood meter. Mood meter, or it might
Okay.
even be called mood meter journal these days.
Yeah.
And it's the coolest little thing, right? You set up it's an app, it'll cost you like $2.49. I had maybe 4 or 5 alarms a day that would go off, and it would say, how are you feeling? And you go into the app and you click on an emotion, and it gives you other emotions around it. So let's say, oh, content. Yes, but are you actually satisfied? Or are you anticipatory? Like, it gave you these words around it. And then you went, actually, it's that emotion. It's the emotional intelligence. It's another self-leadership skill to understand self. So you choose the one, and you've been exposed to other emotions, which is really useful because a lot of people's emotional vocabulary it can be quite limited.
Yeah.
And then it said, okay, what are you doing right now? Okay, are you and then you go, oh, well, I'm doing this thing. Okay, and then it would keep track of that. And after 2, 3, 4 weeks, you then looked at the overall patterns, and you found out from the 4 quadrants, which was high energy positive, high energy negative, low energy positive, low energy negative. You start to paint a picture. And when you link that back to what were you doing at the time, it becomes clear. If you're always feeling high energy negative, and you're always, whilst you're at your job, that's pretty indicative.
A message.
That makes me angry. I got to get out of here. It's a real tangible wee tool that can paint a picture, because your feelings in one moment are not enough to give you a real understanding. That's like, as a client of mine said, it's like taking one photograph and expecting that to tell the story of your life. It can't. It's only a snapshot. So that's when you take these mini snapshots over time. It's another tool, especially if you're not really aware of what you want to do or not do. It gives you some great data to start working with.
Yeah.
So that's another example of something you can.
That's fascinating. That would be very, very interesting to do.
It's very cool. Blew my mind. So there's lots of things there, but I think that the biggest one is deciding or exploring before you decide. It's exploring what's important to me now.
Yeah.
Okay. And what role, as I said before, does my career or my business, what role do I want it to play in my life? Is it getting bigger because I have more time, or is it getting smaller because there's other things that I'm attracted to?
Yeah.
So that's why I'm saying it's a very individual recipe, but having somebody help you unpack that, put it on the table, and then walk all around it and really look at it, and then rearrange it is incredibly valuable.
Yeah. It really is a time for a bit of self-reflection, isn't it?
Completely. And then growth. I reckon it's reflection, and then some pruning might be necessary.
Pruning is always good. I think positive pruning.
Bit of those frameworks that you put up to, hold the tomatoes in place. I'm not a gardener. I'm making this up now.
No,
so all of those different things are going to help you flourish and thrive, which is what we deserve.
Exactly.
What we deserve.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Angela. This was absolutely fascinating. Now, if you could please share, where can people find you and contact you?
Yeah, that's an easy one. It's just a very unusual surname, so hopefully that'll be in your show notes.
Yep.
It's just angelaraspass.com.au, and the Raspass, if you're just listening, is spelled RASPASS.com.au. That's where you'll find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on YouTube. That's the place where it all happens, and
Perfect.
there's many
That's where the
ways in
magic
which you can,
happens.
yeah, that's where the magic happens. And there's lots of different ways I can support people, but the best way is really to have a conversation, and then we can ascertain what's going on for you, and then we can make joint decisions from there.
Conversations are a good starting point for many things.
Absolutely,
I think.
always.
Thank you so much, Angela.
You're really welcome. It was great to talk.
Thank you so much for joining us today. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Please like, share, and subscribe so you can stay updated with more from Midlife Unraveled. To see more Midlife Unraveled, follow us at midlifeunraveled.com or at Midlife Unraveled on Facebook and Instagram. We'll see you soon.